Hello everyone. Welcome to TCOM 408. Dr. Mike here. In this video we're going to talk about the ethics of social responsibility and social responsibility theory. Now, while you can embrace any ethical perspective that you want, I truly hope that you endorse the idea of behaving in ways that are socially responsible, social responsibility ethics. So, here we ask, what are the basic responsibilities and obligations of an individual or a corporation to society? Social responsibility is an ethical theory that says an entity, whether it's a government, a corporation, an organization, an individual citizen, all have a responsibility to society. Think about individual, personal, social responsibility, and then we'll compare that to corporate social responsibility. At a personal level, are we individually responsible to live as socially responsible citizens? And if so, what does that mean? As good citizens, what should we refrain from doing? In what areas do we have a responsibility to act? Now you will have to decide what your own individual responsibilities are. What obligations do you have towards yourself, towards your family, towards your employer, towards society? Here in the United States, we have a shared sense of personal responsibility, I think. So for some of us, these responsibilities are very important. Things like community service and giving back, volunteering, political participation. That means voting, being aware of what's going on and participating. Environmentalism. That means being a good steward of the environment. Defending democracy and the First Amendment. This means standing up for basic human rights. Military service. In some families, this is an important duty or obligation. We all have, as citizens, an obligation to do jury duty, to pay our fair share of the taxes. How about family loyalty? A responsibility to take care of our aging parents and other relatives. We have a personal responsibility to take care of our own health and wellness. Some of us believe we might have certain religious duties. Other obligations might include giving blood or organ donation, and you might have other obligations that you feel are so important to you personally. All right, what about a corporation? Does it have any responsibilities to society? Corporate social responsibility. Now, by U.S. law, a corporation's only responsibility is to serve the shareholders and the investors to make as much money as possible. It's called the fiduciary responsibility. Okay, the only other responsibility they have besides making money really is just to obey the law. Now, some of us believe that media companies in particular carry responsibilities above making money and not breaking the law. Why should a media company have a responsibility to society? What could be the rationale? Well, I can identify at least 3 reasons. First, the press has a preferred position in society. The media are given constitutional protection under the First Amendment. Also consider the pervasiveness of the media. The media are everywhere. We're surrounded by media all of the time. And that media has an impact on society, on public opinion, our values, the culture. So the media are very important institutions and entities and have great power. Well, with great power comes great responsibility. So what are the specific obligations and duties and responsibilities of the media to society beyond making a profit? Well, social responsibility theory in its most basic form, is just the idea that freedom carries responsibilities and obligations. If you're given freedom, you must behave in ways that are responsible. Social responsibility is something called a normative theory of ethics. In other words, it describes how the media should operate in a free and democratic society. This set of theories doesn't focus on how media actually operate. It puts forth ideas about how the media should operate ideally. Social responsibility theory also asserts that the media should remain free of government control, but in exchange, media must serve the public and the public's interest. Now, social responsibility theory usually centers on news and information, that particular function of the media. But we can apply this ethic to entertainment and persuasion and advertising as well. But let's focus on social responsibility theory first as it applies to news and information and the world of journalism. Social responsibility and the news media. Here we're talking about having high standards of journalistic performance. Now, concerns about journalism go way back in our country. Back in the 20th century, in the 1930s and the 1940s, critics were worried about the power of the media because everything was controlled by a handful of major film studios and radio networks. And these radio networks dominated national media. And most cities only had one or two newspapers. So there was scarcity. Unlike today, there were limited choices and outlets for the news. So the critics got together to study this situation. They thought the public wasn't being served very well by the news media in the mid-20th century. So a group of academic elites got together. This was known as the Hutchins Commission. It was a study group formed at the University of Chicago in the 1940s. It was funded by the media industry itself. The Time magazine owner, Henry Luce, provided money to establish this independent commission to study the role of the press in society and to make recommendations on how the press should best operate in support of democracy. The Hutchins Commission on Freedom of the Press, it met for several years in the 1940s. It's named after its chairperson, Robert Hutchins, who was the chancellor at the University of Chicago. So after its study, it released a report in 1947 called A Free and Responsible Press. A Free and Responsible Press. The report reached a couple of big major conclusions. First, the press has a responsibility to give voice to the public and society. And it said that the free press was not living up to that responsibility because it was too busy serving its commercial masters and commercial interests instead of truly serving the public. The Hutchins Commission articulated the basic news media obligations to society. So this is what we should expect from news stories. They should be informative, accurate, objective, fair, balanced, and diverse. The commission argued that a lot of journalism was pretty superficial. It said a responsible media must do more than just report the facts. It has to place them in context. That means the media should provide analysis, interpretation, explanation, or what the commission called the truth about the facts. In-depth, explanatory reporting. Now, the Hutchins Commission set forth for the press a code of social responsibility, a set of prescriptions that included 5 basic goals for journalism in America. First, it said that the media should provide a truthful, comprehensive, and intelligent account of the day's events in a context which gives them meaning. Now, this is a high standard of performance, to find the truth, to be comprehensive, to deliver it in an intelligent way in some kind of context and background. A second goal was that the media should provide a forum for the exchange of comment and criticism. Now, I think this situation has changed since the mid-20th century, when there were very few voices out there. But today, in the internet world, anybody can get out there and post their comments, their criticisms, and their opinions. How about this goal for the media? The projection of a representative picture of the constituent groups in the society. This means diversity, inclusion, pluralism, multiculturalism. Again, I think we've come a long way since the mid-20th century America on this issue, but we still have a way to go to combat stereotypes and misrepresentations. Another recommendation of the commission was that the media help present and clarify the goals and values of society. Now, you'll have to decide on your own if our media and political leaders today are giving us the honest and genuine and important goals and values that we need for a better society. Another recommendation of the commission was that all citizens have full access to the day's intelligence, that news information should be readily available and low cost. Okay? Now, we still have a digital divide in this country, a gap between the haves and the have-nots in terms of technology. But I think that most people today have a reasonably fair shot at gaining access to news and information. All right, just to kind of summarize social responsibility. Social responsibility theory calls for self-regulation. It's not about government control. In fact, the theory rejects most government control. It's about the media being able to control themselves through self-regulation. Social responsibility calls for a responsible, ethical industry, operating under self-restraint and with lots of accountability. I like this quote. One's right to freedom of expression must be balanced against the private rights of others and against vital social interest. It is a balancing act. Freedom of expression while respecting privacy rights of others and caring about what's in the best interest of society. What about media content and social responsibility theory? How does it apply to the actual content, the stream of messages produced by the media organizations? Well, social responsibility theory suggests that these media outlets ought to practice good journalism, strong journalism, that the media should protect kids, especially by using ratings and filtering devices, that media content should promote diversity and inclusion and multiculturalism, that the media content on a whole should promote positive social values, that the media in its content maybe should promote sustainability and environmentalism, and of course, in the content, media should always reflect the humane treatment of animals. So there's how social responsibility theory might, in a few ways, apply to media content. Now, there are some problems with social responsibility theory, for sure. It's not universally supported, although I think the vast majority of people support the idea. But let's think about some of the problems. One problem is deciding who's responsible to whom and for what. I mean, we can't be responsible for everything. What specific obligations do the media have to the public? And is the theory too paternalistic? Is it too full of recommendations about how people ought to act. Does social responsibility theory open the door to government intervention? What if the media don't live up to notions of social responsibility? Would that open the door for the government to step in? Does social responsibility theory violate the tenets of the First Amendment? I don't think so, but some critics might. Maybe you have other concerns. Most of the concerns about social responsibility come down to its impact on profit. Some folks, especially hardcore marketplace libertarians, assert there is no social responsibility to do anything except make money. Maybe you've heard of the Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman. He once declared that the social responsibility of business is to increase profits, and that's all. Friedman asserted that businesses have no social responsibility other than increase profits and refrain from breaking the law, engaging in deception and fraud. Well, to me, that's kind of a low bar for a corporation. In terms of the media companies, do you agree with that? No social responsibility? Or do you think they do have a social responsibility? I personally think that all of us as individuals or corporations, whatever the entity, we all have special obligations to ourselves and the world around us. Anyway, that's a kind of a basic take on the idea of social responsibility theory. We'll talk more about how this applies in the real world in the next video, okay? Until then, I'll see you, and please be safe and take care.